Chapter 410. Dustless's pupils narrowed slightly, with a little caution, his eyes focused on the unknown creature in Kaido's hand, and his eyebrows flashed with curiosity. The strange monster that came into view was very different, like a dragon or a tiger, with a lot of messy whiskers under the fluffy mouth, and it seemed to be given life. Whiz! As the sound of something breaking through the air faded, Kaido's broad figure disappeared once again. His speed was extremely fast. Go to hell. The hot blast roared down, and Kaido mercilessly blasted towards the back of Dustless's head. After failing once, he would no longer be careless and launched a fatal sneak attack on Dustless with all his strength. There is no morality in pirates, because this profession itself is synonymous with despicable. In the world of pirates, there is no market for the noble word morality. His speed is very fast, and he has improved a lot compared to before, so is his strength. Calmly staring at the front, the blazing beast fist blew Dustless's hair into a mess like grass. Just as he was about to finish off Dustless, the ground beside his feet suddenly burst open. A thick and solid green wood that was no different from a python strangely sprang out. Kaido, who was caught off guard, was simply thrown out. How much ability does this guy have? In the deep pit, Kaido stood up again, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said gloomily. Caw caw caw. Suddenly, the ground burst open, and dense green trees stretched out from it, twisting their waists like countless large snakes, sweeping towards Kaido in a carpet-like manner. Look down on people to a certain extent. I am the strongest creature in the world, how can I be defeated by your rotten leaves? Seeing this, Kaido's face was full of anger. His body contained explosive power as he leaped up, and a dark red fist more than 10 meters high fell down with endless flames. Boom boom boom, with a loud roar, the green trees instantly turned into a sea of fire, and black smoke slowly burned, with an exaggerated height of more than 10 meters, covering the sky, and the whole void became dark. His boundless perception spread out, and the rapidly approaching black silhouette immediately came into view. Naive, Dustless turned his gaze to the right. His calm eyes shot out a cold light. He clenched his hand into a fist and punched towards the empty space on his right with all his strength. A powerful airwave left his hand and was about to swallow the flickering figure. Insignificant tricks, what can you do to me? Seeing this, Kaido only sneered again and again, his shriveled mouth forming a cruel smile. At the same time, his black iron fist also punched out an energy wave that was not weaker than the attack. Boom boom boom, the two fists that were filled with the power of destruction mixed together, and the air exploded with a bang. Blazing waves of air spread out like a colorless fire, and the flowing air was also evaporated. With a stern expression, Dustless's body emitted countless rays of light and disappeared without a trace. Got it. Seeing Dustless's body disappear, Kaido was not surprised. Instead, he was overjoyed. His murderous intent was boiling. He had suffered a loss before, and this time, he wanted to get it back. With a thought, the surface of Kaido's skin changed without leaving a trace. Boom. Dustless's body suddenly flashed, and the golden calf whistled up and directly hit Kaido's abdomen wrapped around armament haki, but the situation was different from before. Armament haki is to turn your body into an invisible hard armor, and the scene that appears on Kaido's body is incredible. Armament haki, as hard as steel, was as soft as rubber in an instant and directly caved in. Bastard, what the hell is this ability? Dustless was stunned. He tried to pull out his calf that was deep in Kaido's belly, but he helplessly found that it was no different from being stuck in a swamp. Even if he used all his strength, he could not move it at all. Why are you looking at me struggling? This is my ability. Do you think the name 100 Beasts Kaido is groundless? Don't get carried away with your success. Kaido sneered, looking down at Dustless, the contempt and viciousness in his eyes were obvious. This is what you get for provoking me. The black iron fist roared down and went straight to Dustless's head. Dustless's hands have been beaten again and again. Kaido's heart has long been filled with anger. Now that Dustless is captured by him, he naturally has to vent his anger and kill him. Pucci, the fist covered with armament hockey directly hit Dustless's head, and a scarlet blood stain suddenly spilled in the air. Looking up, Dustless's stomach has sunk deep. Waste, you don't even know armament hockey. The soft feeling from his fist made Kaido stunned. Wu Chen's level of character did not know how to be domineering. But soon, his astonishment turned into thousands of murderous intentions. He was actually defeated by a little brat who did not even know how to be domineering. Damn it! Bang bang bang, a series of iron fists with Kaido's anger roared down. The dense number of punches fell mercilessly like a rainstorm, all hitting Dustless's target. The whole person was badly mutilated, only a weak breath was left. Looking around, Dustless has turned into a pile of meat. I'll send you to heaven, you eyesore. Kaido's mouth twitched into a bitter smile, his eyes were dark and cold, the strength of his whole body was pushed to the limit, and he mercilessly punched the ground. Boom boom boom, the earth directly burst open, Dustless's body simply turned into dust and was permanently buried in the ground. Kaido did not look at Dustless's body, he simply flicked his sleeves and left. How is this possible? Before he could even take half a step, Kaido's lungs began to churn, and he uncontrollably spat out blood. His eyes were filled with fear, and an unprecedented stinging pain spread through his mind. It was as if he had been struck by lightning, and his spirit immediately withered. Ah ah ah. It seems that this game is over, a frivolous voice sounded. Kaido's face was full of confusion, the owner of the annoying voice should be directly smashed by him. Welcome to reality from the world of dreams, I'm sorry to let you experience this painful dream. Chapter 411. Kaido's spirit was extremely sluggish, his face was tired, his spirit was hit hard like never before, and the world in front of him suddenly changed. The black smoke burning in the sky disappeared, the ground was restored to its original state, and the traces of fighting disappeared as if nothing had happened. With his pupils enlarged, Kaido looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Everything was intact, but he himself was hit hard and it was difficult for him to stand up. Bastard, what kind of witchcraft did you use? Guy, whose body was unable to bear the heavy burden, knelt on the ground and roared at Dustless while gnashing his teeth. He and Dustless had clearly gone through a series of battles just now before completely annihilating him. Now it seems that nothing has happened. Do you often commit suicide? Is your head broken, Kaido? Big Mom's idiotic eyes looked at Kaido, with endless ridicule in his eyes. Obviously, nothing happened. This kid not only recovered from a serious illness, but also vomited blood in his mouth. If you want to avoid the battle, just say it. Why do you have to act so beautifully and realistically? Whitebeard also frowned as he looked at Kaido. From his confused eyes, it was not difficult to see that nothing had happened. Kaido was still alive and kicking a second ago, but the next second, his face was pale and his body was weak and half dead. Looking at the furious Kaido, Dustless looked at him hopelessly. After a long time, he sighed, and his eyes were filled with helplessness. It's normal that this old guy doesn't understand the principle of genjutsu. How is it possible? Is it possible that what happened just now was an illusion? Kaido's face was full of disbelief, and he had an impulse to go crazy. If it was the so-called illusion, then how could he explain his injuries? Bastard, doesn't that mean that I have been dancing in the world created by genjutsu? Kaido's eyes flashed with understanding, and he cursed. He was not an idiot, and he was also a top powerhouse who had experienced hundreds of battles. After a short period of confusion, he immediately understood the reason. Staring at Dustless's eyes, only those strange eyes gave him a feeling that they could swallow everything. Through his observation hockey, he could clearly feel the evil refracted by those eyes, which was no different from the black holes in the universe. Unknowingly, he was trapped in them and could not extricate himself. Those eyes of yours. despicable and shameless villain. His eyes turned scarlet, and Kaido's hatred for Dustless reached an unprecedented peak. He wished he could chop Dustless's body into thousands of pieces and burn his bones into ashes to vent the hatred in his heart. It was as if he had just woken up from a dream. Kaido understood that it was through those eyes that he had been tricked. From the beginning, he felt that there was something wrong with Dustless's eyes, but he didn't expect it to be this kind of ability. When he came back to his senses, it was already too late. Observation Haki is really a good ability. Seeing Kaido's expression, Dustless's face sank slightly and he gently nodded. Observation Haki makes the 5 senses sharper and can detect the breath of the surrounding creatures, emotional changes of Haki, and can also be used to foresee and avoid danger. After reaching an unimaginable level of refinement, one could directly read the other party's mind. This was the so-called mind-reading technique. When did it start? Kaido asked unwillingly and yelled at Dustless, "Shameless villain, you won by such a mean means. If you have the guts, fight with me for 3 days and 3 nights." Whitebeard and Big Mom were not rookies, and they frowned. After Kaido's explanation, they immediately understood the reason. How can those eyes be so evil, and they seem to be full of negative emotions? The two frowned deeply and looked at the evil eyes. They also felt that their souls were being devoured and instinctively closed their eyes. Although they didn't know what the strange eye was for, there was no doubt that Kaido was killed by it. Both Big's mom and Whitebeard closed their eyes, hoping that they wouldn't follow in Kaido's footsteps. When? Stupid, do you need me to tell you in advance when I start? With a sarcastic smile on his face, Dustless said in a sarcastic tone, "Since you decided to challenge me, you have been silent in my illusion world, despicable." With a muffled groan, Kaido simply closed his eyes. His face was full of disdain, but his heart was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. The scene of the previous battle with him and Dustless were all illusions. He even used his ability and exposed his trump card to Dustless's vision. Despicable. I don't remember you pirates having any morality. For you, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Didn't you say that before? Dustless looked at Kaido with a smile and asked. This guy is very shameless. He plotted against others and it's fair, but when it's his turn, it's despicable. Twisting words and forcing logic. His expression stiffened, and no matter how thick Kaido's face was, he couldn't help but blush. Then, he simply fell silent, and then directly lay on the ground, motionless, as if he was waiting for his punishment. Boom boom boom, the harsh roar resounded through the sky, and the violent explosion suddenly spread. The pirates who were watching the movements in the center of the island didn't even have time to escape before they were blown to pieces. Strangely, this impact didn't come from the surface of the sea, but from the bottom of the sea. In the cold and dark deep sea, you can clearly see more than a dozen large ships coated with film, like a sneaking beast. Although these ships are similar to marine battleships, there are obvious essential differences. The most eye-catching thing is that the white flag obviously belongs to the world government. These people obviously don't belong to the marine, they are all wearing black suits and sunglasses. Let's get rid of you all at once. On the bow of the ship, an old but steady and powerful voice sounded. Looking up, it was an old man with white eyes. This person was playing with a long sword with beautiful curves in his hand. Even though the sword was not out of its scabbard, one could feel the awe-inspiring and domineering aura from it. Chapter 4:12. The island where Whitebeard and others dueled trembled and trembled, suffering from the destruction of unknown explosives. The whole island was like a jumping bed, trembling non-stop. The entire sea region was filled with flames, and the suffocating black smoke lingered in the sky. Hundreds of kilometers away, the smoke could be seen. It was like a dark cloud that covered the entire sky. The scorching temperature boiled the surrounding seawater, and it was bubbling. It can be seen how big the fire was. The power of this explosion is obviously not something that ordinary explosives can have. The pirates are really useless. Compared with the United World Government, they are not even a little bit worse. Picking up the box containing the devil fruit, Dustless didn't care about Kaido's life or death. He had already guessed who caused the explosion. If you want to play, please continue. I have something to do, so I can't accompany you. Looking thoughtfully at the fire in the sky, Dustless smiled and said. He didn't say much and simply left. He had already expected what would happen next. Election of the Yonko, 4 emperors. Nonsense. It was obviously a heavenly network, and the examiners were not super pirates like Whitebeard and Kaido, but the entire world government. Only by escaping from their hands can you get the title of the emperor. In other words, it was a narrow escape. Only those who could slip out of the world government's hands would be recognized by the world. Then, like an emperor, they would stand at the top of the pyramid and look down on the world. Wait. An old voice came, and the tone was full of curiosity. It was not difficult to hear that there was no hostility. This is a good opportunity to be famous in the world. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you can escape from the government safely, you can be as famous as the pirate King Roger. A seductive voice rang in everyone's ears. It was full of magic, pulling everyone's rationality. The person who spoke was Whitebeard, who had been silent all this time. Hearing this, Kaido and Big As Mom, who were lying on the ground, breathed heavily. Their faces were full of fanatical yearning, and their eyes even fell into fantasy. The reason why they joined the pirate profession is that everyone has the same purpose. They want to be as famous as the pirate King Roger. They want their names to spread to all corners of the world. Even if they are spurned by the world, they will not hesitate to move towards this goal. If he didn't shock the world with his peerless martial arts, he would shock the world with his evil deeds. Yes, I haven't become the pirate king yet, so how can I hate this little island? Under the influence of Whitebeard, Kaido said proudly, his whole body trembled with excitement, and his eyes were full of fascination. He didn't know what other people's purpose was, but he became a pirate to make a name for himself, and then use it as a benchmark to establish his own kingdom. Under Dustless's astonished gaze, Kaido, who had been ravaged by the illusion, actually stood up. Even though his forehead was covered in sweat, it could not stop his enthusiasm. This group of monsters seems to have a fighting value every time they mention the word Pirate King. The corners of his mouth twitched without a trace, and Dustless was speechless. In this world, the 3 words, One Piece, seemed to have a special meaning. Every time it was mentioned, even a cameo could break out again for the so-called pursuit of the dream. Famous. I don't have that kind of great dream. After looking at Whitebeard for a while, Wu Qin said indifferently. He just glanced at Whitebeard and then turned around to leave. His indifferent tone made them unable to recover from their shock. What's more, I didn't say that I was a pirate, and the life of a fugitive is not suitable for me. Dustless's footsteps suddenly stopped, revealing half of his face, and his plain eyes became as sharp as an eagle's. Dustless said, not only that, we may be enemies in the future. You may be prosperous, see you next time. After that, Dustless's body lost its texture, and his body turned into countless photons, and swept straight towards the distant sky. With a roaring sound, the whole person completely disappeared, and the clouds in the depths of the sky also disappeared. What a strange person. Dustless smacked his lips and was puzzled, then he shook his head and looked at the explosions around the island attentively. He also looked at the devil fruit that Dustless took away. If they can pass this exam of the world government, their future days will naturally be unstoppable. If they can't, they will all be annihilated like withered leaves. This is a big gamble, but the life of a pirate is gambling on fate. Whitebeard, who had been gambling for decades, appeared to be calm and collected. He had experienced too many ups and downs. The same is true for Big As Mom and Kaido. They have been unstoppable all their lives, and these battles can't scare them. Above the cloudless sky, a figure stood in the sky. He took off the mask he had been wearing, revealing a handsome face. His shining eyes were as bright as stars, and he looked energetic. It's strange that the devil fruit grew up like this. I'm afraid that such an ultimate devil fruit is unique in the world, and there is no other similar existence. Throwing away the iron box in his hand, Dustless looked at the dark red fruit, carved with flowers and trees, and a floating dragon, and shook his head speechlessly. After observing for a while, he didn't see any difference. Kamui. His pupils twisted, and ripples splashed in the void, forming a small vortex, and the devil fruit in Dustless's hand was also sucked in and stored in a different dimension space. The world government is so cruel, they want to wipe out all the pirates at once. His pupils narrowed slightly, revealing a thoughtful look. The flames around the island were obviously wrong. The power was far stronger than normal gunpowder, and there was a faint purple halo in it. I seem to have seen these things. There was a flash of light in his mind, and Dustless thought of some kind of explosive that was comparable to ancient weapons. Chapter 4:13. Dustless's face was heavy. He was not worried about the life and death of Whitebeard and the others. Not to mention them, even if the whole world was blown up along with the annihilation, he would not feel sad. People are selfish, especially Dustless, who only has himself in his eyes, is even more selfish. If you want him to save people, you must first pay a price that can move his cold heart. Power rock. I didn't think that in order to deal with these big pirates, even these things are used at all costs, and they are using power rock on such a large scale. Frowning, Dustless was surprised. Power rock is a special existence comparable to ancient weapons. When it comes into contact with the air, it will cause a violent explosion with amazing power. It is comparable to ancient weapons, which indirectly means that it has the power to destroy the world, and it also silently shows that using this ultimate weapon requires the approval of a higher-level person. Although power rock can be used by Marines, such a large-scale use is obviously approved by the higher-ups. Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and Marine's Fleet Admiral have worked hard to deal with these big pirates. With a sigh, Dustless can be 100% sure that it is definitely approved by Marine Fleet Admiral or Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Power rock is not an ordinary explosive. When its power reaches a certain level, it can blow up an island. Large-scale use must be approved by Marines higher-ups or the world government. Well, even though there is a distance of 10,000 meters from the ground, everything that happens on the island can't escape Dustless's eyes. The sponge around the entire island exploded violently and the splashing waves were hundreds of meters high. Did they deliberately let them on the island? With a touch of curiosity in his eyes, Dustless suspiciously said. The explosion just exploded around the island, blocking the pirates' retreat and trying to expel them to the island. Countless pirates can be seen scrambling to abandon their ships and flee to the center of the island. Only there is peace for the time being. Obviously, it is intentional. This is interesting. No, is it possible that they are going to? His face suddenly stiffened. Dustless's pupils stared at the exploding sea below. It is obvious that they want to force all the pirates to the island and then take the opportunity to annihilate them in one fell swoop. After recalling the unique structure of the island, Dustless immediately understood the government's actions. This island was different from other islands. The central area was a dormant volcano that had been erupting for hundreds of years. The lava that flowed into the sea was deposited over time, forming the present island. Although it was an extinct volcano, once it was hit by a powerful force, it would erupt again. The heart of snakes and scorpions. No wonder they didn't dare to come from the sea with great fanfare. Instead, they secretly came from the bottom of the sea. They actually have such a vicious plan. Are they trying to use the power of the kinetic rock to reawaken the volcano? The power of nature was irresistible. It was powerful enough to destroy all living things. Even if it was a small volcanic eruption, it still had the power to destroy everything in the world. Especially since this was an island surrounded by the sea, there was no way to escape. Once the volcano erupted, it was easy to imagine what kind of predicament it would be. The world government and the marine are really not good things. Shaking his head, Dustless's face was dead. There were still many local aborigines on this island. Once the volcano erupted again, they would naturally be unable to avoid the blazing torrent and would inevitably become the burial goods of these pirates. The Devil's Slaughter order can be launched, but it doesn't matter if a lot of aborigines are buried with them. What's more, on this island where pirates gather, the local islanders did not report the traces of pirates to the government. To some extent, they are already in cahoots with the pirates. Under the deep sea, many humans can be clearly seen on the bottom of the sea. These people are covered with circular bubbles and can easily swim to the bottom of the sea. It's actually the same principle as the coated ship. Fleet Admiral, the installation of the kinetic rock has been completed. As long as it is possible, it can explode at any time. A Marine lieutenant commander reported to the tall man. His face was full of fear, and his forehead was sweating. The people in front of him were all powerful figures, and their strength stood at the top of the world. As long as they stomped their feet, the whole world would tremble. Good job, continue to install the kinetic rock, the power must reach the dose to awaken the whole volcano. With his hands in front of him, Fleet Admiral Kong said with an awe-inspiring look. For those pirates, whether big pirates or small pirates, he hated them so much that he couldn't wait to get rid of them. Being burned to death by the eruption of the hot lava, although the method is inhumane, but thinking of what these pirates did, Fleet Admiral quickly felt relieved and the guilt in his heart disappeared. Fleet Admiral, the pirates are hateful and should be killed, but the ordinary people on the island have nothing to do with them. If we do this, it will make people feel disappointed and sorry for those who live at the bottom and silently support the marine. The pirates are hateful, but they are innocent. A voice sounded. Looking up, it was Z with purple hair. Not only him, but the Marine's top officials also joined this operation. Hero Garp, Warring States, and the future 3 admirals, and many rear admirals and vice admirals were clearly visible. These people had a look on their faces. They are righteous Marines, not demons who involve ordinary people in order to win. If so, they are not worthy of the word righteous on their cloak. Hearing this, Fleet Admiral's eyes flashed with hesitation. When he was about to speak, a cold sneer came. Pedantic, what is righteous? What is a demon? Completely eradicating these black sheep is righteous. Letting them escape and harm the world is a demon. An old man with a katana suddenly appeared. His cold voice resounded throughout the coated ship with endless contempt. However, even the Fleet Admiral and the admirals were dissatisfied, but they didn't refute. It can be seen how high the status of the bald old man with the katana was. Chapter 4:14. The bald old man was not angry, his whole body was full of majestic aura. The oppressive aura made everyone stagnate. Everyone felt as if their bones were stuck in their throat and breathing was several times more difficult. Since ancient times, those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. It's a pity that civilians died, but to be buried with so many pirates with bounties of more than 100 million, this luxurious funeral, even if their souls and ghosts are scattered, they will still feel at ease in the underworld. The old man with the sword said in a stern tone. To be able to catch this group of pirates, not to mention the lives of hundreds of indigenous people, even if they had to sacrifice the lives of a town, they would not hesitate. Because the destruction caused by these super pirates is far more than the small population of a town, the two simply cannot be compared. Z's eyes flashed with scarlet, his face was full of anger. The Marine is righteous, not a butcher with hands stained with the blood of civilians. Such ruthless words, what is the difference between them and pirates? Z stepped forward and was about to argue with the highest power in the world, one of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, but a pair of strong and powerful hands directly pulled him. Turning his head, he saw Garp shaking his head. Compared to the ugly pirates, the world government that deceives the world is more abominable. Standing back in the same place, Z's eyes flashed with sadness. To some extent, the world government is more despicable than the pirates who burn and loot. Boom boom boom, endless explosions resounded throughout the sea. The world government's carefully prepared gift for this assessment competition was far beyond imagination. A series of explosions continued to rise and fall, the whole sponge was trembling. The water droplets that rose from the ground reached a terrifying height of more than 10 meters. They surged towards the interior of the island like waves. The ability users were like drowned rats, their entire bodies emitting a sense of powerlessness. This violent tremor. Is it coming? In the dense jungle, the ground was full of water stains, only Dustless was not touched by a drop of water. With him as the center, the land within 2 meters of him was not eroded by the water falling from the sky. It can be clearly seen that Dustless's body was covered with an invisible cover, blocking the water droplets from being separated. The ground was shaking and buzzing. From the initial weak feeling, it gradually became stronger and stronger. In less than a few seconds, the tremors were like a flash flood, spreading across the entire island. Bang, 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 accompanied by an ear-piercing boom, the sky instantly turned crimson. In the blink of an eye, the temperature increased by several hundred times. Due to the extreme heat, the primeval forests on the island withered in an instant, as if it was late autumn. The yellowed leaves danced in the air with the breeze. Looking up, the crimson lava erupted like a fire dragon roaring in the sky, unscrupulously venting the pain of being buried underground for 100 years. It reached a terrifying height of several thousand feet. It was not difficult to see how many power rocks the world government had used in order to annihilate Whitebeard and the other big pirates. On the grassy island, everything withered and turned into ashes in an instant. The heat of the magma melted everything, and all the living creatures collapsed. The densely packed pirates could only surrender their lives under the blazing Red Reaper. Only a small part of it has not been eroded by the magma, which is also the result of the control of Whitebeard and Kaido, as well as Big's mom and many pirates. At the same time, the government ships hidden in the deep sea poked their heads out. Now one of the Gorosei, the old man with a sword, was about to make a declaration of annihilation when the golden light and shadow invaded and the film wrapped around the entire hole burst open. Kill him, Tenryubito. Seeing someone invade, the Gorosei with a sword was about to order his men to kill the intruder, but Dustless's face was reflected in everyone's eyes. The intruder had become one of their own. This dramatic scene caused everyone to be stunned. They stared at each other, and after a moment, they all revealed bone-deep disgust. Suddenly there was a Tenryubito on top of their head, and no one would be happy. The face of the Gorosei with a sword was also stiff and extremely unnatural. In terms of status alone, the status of Tenryubito is higher than the Gorosei themselves and any department they lead. The most speechless thing is that the strength of the Tenryubito in front of them is quite extraordinary. He has the strength to compete with an admiral and even surpasses an admiral. However, no one thinks this is a good thing. Tenryubito is already difficult enough, and this Tenryubito is extraordinarily strong, which means it is even more difficult. I'll just watch and don't talk, you don't have to worry about me. Seeing the atmosphere suddenly deadlocked, Dustless smiled and shrugged. Everyone doesn't have to worry about it, he was originally looking for a place to rest. However, no one bought Dustless's account, and their expressions were very depressed. Although they concealed it well, Dustless could still catch the deep-rooted disgust in their eyes. Why? Luo Isi Nan, holy, please help yourself. As the person with the highest status and strength here, the Gorosei with the first generation of Ghost Blade said. He originally wanted to ask why Dustless appeared here, but he remembered each other's identity and changed the topic. Hearing this, Dustless nodded silently and was too lazy to ask more. He went straight to the world government official and ordered, "Go and get me a couch. I want to have a good rest. By the way, bring me some melon seeds and drinks." These men in black didn't dare to say more. After all, the orders of Tenryubito can't be disobeyed. If they make Dustless unhappy, they will be killed. The Gorosei will not turn against Dustless for them. By the way, prepare a parasol for me. By the way, if there are any beautiful navy girls, they can dance a little and sing a little song. Chapter 4:15. Dustless's words were like a 10th grade wind blowing by, making all the high-level Marines present stunned and staring at Dustless in astonishment. They didn't expect this guy to have such a hidden attribute. At the same time, it also made them understand an undeniable fact that birds of a feather flock together, even if Dustless, a Tenryubito, is a special existence, and Mariehua, those Tenryubito who are lazy and waste their time are jackals of the same tribe. What did you say? Catch a few Marine female soldiers for your enjoyment. Bastard, how dare you? What do you think the righteous Marines are? Marine soldiers are not for you to have fun. If you want to indulge in luxury, go back to your Mariehua, where you can laugh and talk. Rolling up his sleeves, he was about to beat Dustless when he suddenly remembered the identity of both sides. Fleet Admiral Kong was full of anger and shouted at Dustless with a red face. It can be seen that if it weren't for the identity of Dustless, the furious Fleet Admiral Kong would definitely tear Dustless to pieces. Humph. The Gorosei with the sword snorted and glanced at Fleet Admiral Kong with dissatisfaction. He also lived in Mariehua, and the words just now undoubtedly brought the Gorosei and other departments of the government in. What's so special about this brat? What's so special about his sloppy appearance? His eyes fell on Dustless, and the Gorosei with the first-generation Ghost Blade was puzzled. Dustless's fiancée was not an ordinary Tenryubito. Her family background was much more complicated than that of Dustless. Although both were Tenryubito, there was an essential gap. He even said mercilessly that Dustless compared with her fiancé's identity, he was a real, short and poor face. It doesn't matter if I have this kind of thing or not. Lying lazily on the couch, Dustless raised his feet to the sky and said leisurely, "This kind of thing has nothing to do with me. In short, find all I need." Whoosh! Before Dustless could finish speaking, a silver flash of light tore through the sky. It was as dazzling as the sun, and no one dared to look directly at it. It was extremely awe-inspiring. The lava erupting hundreds of feet high in the air was confined, and the domineering slash was unstoppable. The glowing white light streaked across the erupting volcano, easily tearing it apart. Large amounts of broken rocks fell from the mountain, falling into the scorching cave like a meteor shower. The overflowing lava was finally able to settle the matter peacefully, and peace was restored. Such a domineering slash, is it Red Hair Shanks or Hawkeye my hawk? Marine hero, Garp said calmly. There is no one on this ship. Everyone is a wolf and a tiger. Their strength is enough to fight against 100 people. In terms of strength alone, Red Hair and Hawkeye should be at this level. A person's moves have a little relationship with his own personality and ability. Judging from this domineering momentum that dares to compete with the world, if I'm not wrong, the one who wielded the sword is undoubtedly Red Hair. Wu Chen, who was lying on the couch, closed his eyes and explained as if he was talking to himself. Boom boom boom, the eruption of lava was suppressed, but the white slash did not intend to stop there. It rushed out of the rubble and attacked the world government's ship even more fiercely. The light of a firefly. The bald old man of the 5 honored stars sneered. He was not afraid at all as he jumped onto the fort. The first-generation ghost blade in his hand slowly came out. His whole body strangely emitted blood-colored thunder and lightning, crackling and rattling. The scene was extremely horrifying. When the entire body of the first-generation ghost blade was exposed to the sun, the whole sky was floating with a faint bloody light. Before the sword was pulled out, one could already feel the power of tearing the sea. From this, it seems that the legend about the first-generation ghost blade is true. With a strange luster in his eyes, Dustless recalled the ancient literature recorded by Mariewa and said thoughtfully, "Legend has it that this sword has an evil sword spirit that can erode people's thoughts. Only those who are stronger than the sword spirit can control this sword. Otherwise, they will eventually be swallowed and then die." The ghost blade appears with the blood-red thunder. It is said that the blood-red thunder is the precursor of the world catastrophe. This proves that every time the ghost blade appears, it will be a world-class disaster. Whiz! A faint ripple appeared in the void, and a dark luster flashed. The speed was so fast that it was difficult to catch it with the naked eye. Some people even saw the bald old man, one of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, and they opened their observation hockey in advance to perceive it, but they didn't see the moment when the sword was pulled out. It's worthy of the legendary weapon that destroyed the world, the first-generation ghost blade, but the user is even better. His attainments in kendo are unparalleled in the world. The perfect combination of the two vividly interprets the destruction. Wu Chen's pupils emitted light as he praised. Looking along his line of sight, one could clearly see that the moment the white slash touched the blood-red slash was instantly released and became several times bigger. It was like a whale swallowing and annihilating the white slash in a destructive manner, showing a one-sided situation. The strength of the bald Gorosei, 5 elder stars, is far beyond the imagination of the world. It is conceivable that the strength of the 4 who are on the same level as him is also at this level. It seems that Red has not yet reached the peak of the future. Of course, it is not ruled out that this is just an ordinary sword strike that he casually used to test the depth of the world government. Frowning slightly, Dustless secretly analyzed the situation. Only God knows how strong Red Hair's shanks is now, but according to Dustless's personal guess, Red Hair is obviously preserving his strength. The first-generation ghost blade, looking at the ancient and mysterious sword without a trace, Dustless hid the covetousness in his eyes. Now is not the time. He can feel the evil soul sealed in the sword body, like a peerless demon in the abyss screaming sharply. It is obviously impossible for this old man to willingly give up the sword. Unless he kills him and takes the sword, there is no other way. Chapter 4:16. Standing on the turret, the bald Gorosei, 5 elder stars, with a sword in his hand looked dead. His eyes were full of killing intent, and his glasses were covered with cold frost. Akagami, his heart sank slightly. The bald Gorosei, 5 elder stars, with a sword was full of killing intent, and the blood dancing around his body was more intense and substantial. He sighed in his heart that the world was changeable and fate was even more unpredictable. I'm afraid no one would have thought that Roger's pirates, who were ordinary at that time, could step into this unprecedented realm today. To this day, there is still a sense of absurdity. All the living people you see on the island leave no one alive. The rough and shriveled old hand waved with great momentum. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, holding the first-generation ghost blade shouted in a deep voice. His tone was unquestionable, and even Dustless was thrown out of the sky by him. Bang bang bang! Soon after, groups of men in black jumped off the ship and rushed towards the center of the island. Their vigorous skills and orderly formation showed that they had undergone rigorous training. A group of marine executives looked at each other and jumped off the ship at the same time. They were about to leave. Dustless's lazy understatement made everyone's body stiff. I am a Tenryubito who has no strength. If those crazy pirates take hostages, wouldn't the victory be in vain? Looking at the group of burly men with a smile, Dustless said seriously. Compared with the marine executives and the world government officials in front of him, he is indeed negligible. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, with a sword gave everyone a look, and everyone nodded and ignored the existence of Dustless. Goodbye, Luo E. C. Nant, Saint. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, with a sword just glanced at Dustless faintly, and without waiting for him to answer, his whole body lost its texture and turned into an afterimage. He had heard a little about the battle between Dustless and Z. The strange Tenryubito in front of him is essentially different from the other Tenryubito Mariewa. How unreasonable! The afterimages of the 5 elder stars also gradually dissipated. On the huge hull, Dustless seemed to be isolated from the world, as if he had been abandoned. Compared with the other busy government officials, the idle Dustless was superfluous. Dustless closed his eyes and stretched. Just as he was about to fall asleep, his eyes suddenly opened. Caw caw caw, the azure sky suddenly turned into an emerald color. He could feel a piercing pain on his skin. It was as if someone was poking his skin with a needle. The hull of the ship creaked as it was affected by some special power. The entire ship seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Looking up, the surface of the sea was cut open by a green light. What a powerful slash! Dustless squinted his eyes, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. There were countless masters of swordsmanship in this world. Including the mysterious person in front of him, there were already 3 of them who stood at the pinnacle of swordsmanship. The monstrous slash naturally attracted the attention of countless people. It was impossible to ignore the power that easily tore the entire sea. The difficulty of this mission has increased. The plan must be implemented as soon as possible. A hidden cold light flashed in his eyes, and the bald Gorosei secretly decided, a pirate is always a pirate, and it is difficult for a motley crew to achieve great things. The plan that was painstakingly arranged a few years ago will not be so simple. This is just the prelude. After that, he looked at the destructive emerald slash with interest. He was curious about how Dustless would resist it. The slash that was enough to cut the sea showed that the opponent was a real swordsman. Unfortunately, what happened next made him so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Boom boom boom, the emerald light was unstoppable, and it jumped into the world government's fleet with an unstoppable momentum. It simply pulled the hulls floating on the sea into hell and turned them into a pile of scrap metal. The entire sea was full of fragments of the hull. Dustless's counterattack that the Gorosei expected did not appear. Bastard, what does he mean by this? A roar containing monstrous anger jumped out of his mouth, and the bald Gorosei with the sword had the urge to vomit blood. If Dustless was really a Tenryubito without the strength to truss a chicken, it would be fine, but Mariewa's battle was obvious to all. Although this slash was terrifying, it was not difficult for Dustless to deal with it with the strength of a marine admiral. Obviously, he did so. What are you yelling about? It's fatal to be distracted during a battle. The cold voice resounded through the sky, accompanied by a strong vibration of power. The space shattered, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared, and the whole island trembled fiercely. This old man didn't come to take your life, but you sent yourself to death. Are you confused at your age? Whitebeard. The first-generation ghost blade was unsheathed again, and the Gorosei with the sword suddenly turned into a bloody lightning again. He stared at the huge body behind him with a sneer, staring at the long and narrow sword wound on his chest, and a sneer flashed in his eyes. How can a loser be so arrogant? After saying that, a blood-red light roared out and headed straight for Whitebeard. Loser. You really dare to say that? A contemptuous smile rose on Whitebeard's face, and his eyes were cold, and he said hatefully, the despicable person who sneaked up on me dares to be arrogant and lawless. Are all the people of the world government dead? Caw caw caw, a punch blasted out, the space burst, and its power was infinite. The bloody light also disappeared with it, and the same was true for the iron fist. It was not difficult to see that the two people were evenly matched in this blow. On the sea, Dustless simply stepped on the sea and stared at the black figure in the distance. After a while, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, revealing a playful smile. He actually took the initiative to come to me. Great swordsman, Hawkeye to my hawk. Chapter 4:17. Boom, 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 accompanied by a loud rumble, the emerald light covering the horizon finally converged, and the sky became clear again. The piercing pain disappeared along with it, and the boulder pressing down on his chest also disappeared. His breathing also became smooth and unobstructed. Looking into the distance, a vague figure holding a black broadsword came into view. Unexpectedly young. His eyes flashed with a little color. He didn't expect that such a young Hawkeye's strength had reached the peak. Hawkeye's eyes were no different from an eagle soaring in the sky. There was a sense of sympathy in his heart. Especially the aura emitted by Hawkeye, the feeling of being at the top made Dustless see his own shadow in Hawkeye. What a promising talent. Dustless's body overflowed with countless light particles, and his body lost its texture and turned into raindrops and disappeared. Strange, the black-haired young man frowned, and the black broadsword in his hand reflected a cold light. The feeling of extreme disgust had not dissipated in his heart. Especially the black broadsword in his hand was also restless. Is it an illusion? Hawkeye stared at the debris of the ship in front of him and asked. That disgusting aura was definitely from the ship. It made him and the black broadsword in his hand feel a trace of unprecedented threat. Of course it's not an illusion. The light particles condensed in the sky, and a young figure came out of the light with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. There was no doubt that it was Dustless. Hawkeye countered with an emerald green light. Don't put on such an unapproachable face. You and I have a kind of mutual appreciation. Dustless stared at the incoming cold light without fear, and at the same time, his body emitted an evil golden energy which turned into a solid armor and wrapped Dustless. The golden skeleton giant was reflected in the blue water, and the slender broadsword in his hand could be clearly seen. Although I'm a dabbler in kendo, I always believe in one thing. Dustless, who was in the mini Susanoo, stared at the oncoming slash with a calm expression. In the face of this slash that could crush the sea, he was extremely calm. In the face of absolute power, no matter how strong the attack is, it's futile. After saying that, the golden broadsword swept down, and a wisp of golden broadsword wind shot out. Its power was unparalleled, and it tore the entire sea apart with pure strength. It was rough and direct, and there was no elegance to speak of. Although that was the case, the oncoming slash was simply swallowed up like a stone thrown into the sea. Just the ripples caused by the slash were simply annihilated. There was no technique or elegance to speak of. It was just a straightforward attack that raised the pure destructive power to the limit, and then caused a dimensional change. What an evil feeling. Seeing this, ripples splashed out from Hawkeye's calm eyes, and he was moved. His gaze fell on the huge body of Susanoo, and then he frowned and looked at Dustless, his eyes as sharp as a falcon's. The sword in his hand fell, and an emerald chop once again whizzed out. Compared to the previous chop, the power of the chop was several times stronger. The chop had not yet touched Dustless, but the miniature Susanoo was already showing signs of collapse and annihilation. You're quite capable. Dustless saw Susanoo's strange state and smiled. His pupils suddenly distorted, and violent eye power filled his eyes. Chakra erupted all over his body, and Susanoo's size grew again. Interesting move, it can even grow bigger. Hawkeye's amber eyes flashed with surprise, and his voice was shaken. He stared at Dustless with interest, or simply looked at Susanoo's body that grew bigger, and he suddenly felt a sense of eagerness in his heart. Wu Chen's indifferent expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him made him feel the hot-blooded feeling that had disappeared in his bones for many years. Susanoo was obviously incomplete, and obviously, this was not its limit. Hawkeye could guess that this ferocious giant was only the tip of the iceberg. Whoosh! The straight golden greatsword swept out, and a powerful platinum light whizzed out. Just like before, it was simple and direct, and it interpreted the extreme degree of destruction. The moment the two slashes collided, Hawkeye's slash followed the footsteps of the previous one and was swallowed by the dazzling light. This guy. His strength is definitely stronger than Akagami. Hawkeye's eyes emitted a domineering light, and he lowered the brim of his hat. His whole body was like a sword out of its sheath. Don't talk about fighting with him. As long as you look at him, you will feel a burning pain in your eyes. Being stared at by Hawkeye's eyes, you will feel a sense of fear in your soul. Ha! Hawkeye shouted, and the sharp black sword was raised again. Under the refraction of the sunlight, the entwining sharp cold light was clearly visible, and a cold light that could annihilate the sea was clearly visible. Obviously, Hawkeye was serious this time. It's not good to fight and kill. Why don't we sit down and have a cup of afternoon tea? Seeing Hawkeye's cold face, Dustless said with a smile, and at the same time, he removed the golden Kansusanu and showed a kind and natural smile. What's more, I don't know where you get the confidence to think that you are my opponent. Hearing this, Hawkeye's movements were stiff again, and it was extremely overbearing. An emerald sword whizzed out, and easily divided the sea into two unrelated worlds. It went straight to Dustless to crush him. Did I say something wrong? Dustless helplessly touched his nose, and he was speechless. He was just telling the truth, and he didn't expect that this would irritate the arrogant Hawkeye. You are really petty. Chapter 4:18. Staring thoughtfully at the black blade in Ing Yan's hand, Dustless slowly nodded. To some extent, these supreme swords had spirituality or evil in them. According to Dustless's personal guess, the reason why Ing Yan had such a disgusting aura should be the evil of the first ghost blade that attracted the Black Blade Knight. Challenging him with your current level is no different than courting death. Shaking his head, Wu Qin said in an unusually decisive tone. Of course, he was talking about the bald elder stars who had the first-generation ghost blade. Although the current Hawkeye was powerful and invincible, his current level was obviously not enough to reach the level of the elder stars. There was a gap between them. Now Hawkeye was less than 30 years old. Although his strength was strong, it was impossible for him to shake one of the elder stars. His pupils twisted sharply, the scarlet five-pointed star was clearly visible, staring at the oncoming emerald slash, the corner of his mouth slightly opened. Amaterasu! The overwhelming slash cut the sea and slid out a narrow and incomparably long abyss. In this dark abyss, time seemed to stop flowing, there was a dead silence, and there were no living creatures. Looking up at the sky, it was the same scene. The sea was violently surging, the luster of the emerald cut through the thorns, the sword was majestic, and anything that touched it was destroyed and collapsed. Suddenly, the sky was dark, the boiling water gradually calmed down, and the invincible power of the emerald slash was reduced. Looking into the distance, the strange black flame was slowly swallowing the attack of Ing Yan. Even if it was a powerful counterattack, under the black flame, it seemed to be difficult. In the blink of an eye, it was gone with the wind. The black flame can actually swallow my attack. Hawkeye's poker face began to loosen, and his sharp eyes became even sharper, as if he wanted to see through the black flame completely. Hawkeye was surprised, and there was a hint of a fantasy in his eyes. After a long silence, it turned into a silent sigh. What a strange fellow, what a strange ability. But, the clean knife-like face was replaced by a sense of awe. Ing Yan's black sword was raised again, the tip of the sword was surging, and everything began to change subtly. The endless void was like a dragonfly skimming the water, splashing a weak ripple. In just a few breaths of time, the endless void suddenly condensed countless sword lights. The powerful move was like 10,000 swords. In an instant, Dustless felt that he was isolated from the world, and half of his foot was stepping into hell. This feeling. Under the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Dustless frowned tightly. Through the powerful vision of the Sharingan, he clearly saw that the void was full of countless strength, sharp like a knife. Of course, what made him care was not Yin Yan's move. Haoshiku Haki, staring at Hawkeye, his thoughts turned back, and after thinking of the example of this guy, his doubts were all restrained. The world's greatest swordsman, the old enemy of Red Hair Shanks, one of the Yonko, for emperors, it would be incredible if he doesn't have Haoshiku Haki. Come on. With a cynical smile, Wu Chen threw a provocative look at Hawkeye. At the same time, his body floated up and slowly floated up into the air. There was nothing more ironic than a human looking down at an eagle flying in the sky with a mocking look in his eyes. Nothing could be more ironic than this. Go to hell and repent. Sure enough, seeing this scene, even within Yan's mentality, at this moment, he ignited the fire, and the cold light gathered in his eyes became more intense. There was a dazzling flash in the air, the black sword hand fell, and the thousands of strength all over the void received the command and roared down. For a moment, Dustless was abandoned by the whole world, and all creatures looked at him coldly. This is the first time I used this move, a 360-degree all-around attack. There is no way to avoid it. This move should have been used on the man with red hair. Looking up at Dustless in the sky, Yin Yan's voice was as cold as frost, looking at Dustless's eyes like a dead body. Then shouldn't I be deeply honored? However, do you think that you can hit me with an attack that has no blind spots? Hearing this, Dustless asked. His voice was a little unnatural, and he was surprised that Yin Yan had such a powerful move. Then he thought about it and smiled. It's impossible for the world's greatest swordsman to not have a trump card. Although he was surprised, Dustless maintained his composure all along. If you want to escape, I advise you to give up the futile struggle. Hearing the words, can't be touched, Yin Yan thought Dustless was going to run away, and Yin Yan shouted coldly. Looking at the sky full of strength, Dustless nodded slightly. This move is really terrible, there is no way to avoid it, there is no way to escape, if you are hit, you will die. That was because every ray of light was formed by the saber light that could cut people. It's just a drizzle, and you want to escape, staring at the terrifying light in the sky, Dustless said with a chuckle. His hands embraced the endless void, as if he was going to grab the whole world in his hands. His eyes suddenly opened wide, and a vast and boundless force gushed out of his body. Invisible waves of air burst out of his body. It's also a perfect 360-degree attack. Super Shinra Tensei. With Dustless's command, the dense rainstorm of light was annihilated. The repulsive force moved extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had expanded to a distance of several hundred meters. Moreover, it continued to extend endlessly, engulfing everything in its path. Bang! A deafening roar sounded, and a deep hole of several kilometers in size suddenly appeared on the sea surface. Some kind of special energy prevented the flow of the sea water, and the deep hole remained on the sea surface, unable to be healed. I shouldn't be killed like this, right? Touching his chin, Dustless said to himself innocently. Looking down, a figure suddenly came into his sight, breathing heavily, and seemed to be very tired and embarrassed, but his sharp eyes were still domineering. Chapter 419. The clothes on his upper body were shredded, and he was floating on the sea like snow. Even if his eyes were sharp, his exhaustion was difficult to hide. So dangerous, thinking of the previous scene, Hawkeye muttered to himself with lingering fear. Looking at him, there were obvious traces of depression on his chest, and this was the result of the armament hockey defense in the first place. Otherwise, the end can be imagined. It's indeed a very dangerous technique, but you can escape from it, which indirectly shows that you are extraordinary. His body completely ignored the existence of gravity, floating in the air. His light eyes looked at the embarrassed Hawkeye, and the appreciation in his tone was undisguised. Being hit head-on by Super Shinra Tensei and still being able to maintain this state is indeed extraordinary. Are you being sarcastic? So be it. Anyway, I'm a defeated general. If you want to kill me, just do it. Hawkeye bitterly laughed at himself, and his tone was full of joy. It can be seen that he is not afraid of life and death. From the moment he embarked on kendo, it means that Hawkeye has put life and death aside. There is quite a transcendental mentality. You've even accepted life and death. With your mentality, it's not impossible for you to surpass that old man. With a slight smile, Dustless said seriously. The higher the status of people, the more they value their life and death. It is impossible for the old man with the first-generation ghost blade to give up his life. The higher you stand, the more afraid of death you are. Take today's Dustless as an example. He will never give up his life. He has paid countless hardships to climb to where he is today. Old man. The old man you're talking about is. Hearing this, Eagle Eye's eyes flashed with light, and he asked with hope. His tone was weak, and he regained his vitality. He was sure that the old man mentioned by Wu Qin was not simple. One of the highest powers of the world government, that is, a member of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and the blood-red chop before is his masterpiece. Dustless said truthfully, without any concealment. It's really him, the swordsman who stands at the peak of the world. No wonder Yi had the feeling of fighting with him. Seems like the difference between me and him is like heaven and earth. Hawkeye's sharp eyes dimmed as he sighed. He had already guessed who the owner of the bloody sword was, but he didn't expect it to be one of the legendary figures with the highest authority. There was a difference in status and strength. You don't have to be humble. No matter how strong he is, he's still an old man over 70 years old. As long as you choose the right path in the future, surpassing him will be a matter of course. Looking at Hawkeye's eyes, Dustless said with certainty. The new generation will replace the old. This is history that cannot be changed. Compared with the Gorosei who have lost their ambition, Hawkeye, who knows how to struggle against the current, has a strong mentality. Rely on me, and your future will be even brighter. Only I can bring you to soar high and see an even more vast and boundless world. After a moment of silence, Dustless's eyes lit up and he suddenly spoke. Although it was abrupt, the firmness in his voice made it clear that he wasn't joking. Hearing this, Hawkeye's eyes instantly became gloomy, and a bone-piercing cold light flashed in his eyes. Do you think I will be your dog in order to survive? Are you kidding me? Don't forget that I'm a pirate. In order to survive, I will give up my dream. It's better to die than to reach the limit of kendo. As if he had been insulted, Hawkeye glared at Dustless. He lost his previous calmness and roared in a voice that was similar to the sound of a blizzard in the winter. Just glancing at him, Hawkeye's face was full of disgust. He simply closed his eyes and turned a deaf ear, quietly waiting for the arrival of death. Seeing the person in front of him made him sick. He's really irritable. Even in the face of death, Hawkeye's eyes don't change. Seeing this scene, Wu Qin just smiled. He didn't care whether Hawkeye listened or not. He said to himself, pursuing dreams is not to pull up the skull flag and become a pirate. It is the same for seeking the pinnacle of sword. Everyone has their own dream in their heart. No one stipulates that the pursuit of freedom has to be a pirate. It doesn't necessarily mean that one has to be a pirate to get the legendary treasure. The Marine can do the same. Even the so-called treasure of a pirate is mostly ill-gotten wealth. It's all obtained from plundering people's wealth. Even if it's seized by the Marine, there's nothing wrong with it. What do you mean by this? Hawkeye's face loosened as he opened his eyes and asked coldly. His voice was still isolated from the world, indifferent as ice. His pupils were still gray and there was no emotion that a human should have. Dustless's tone obviously revealed a different meaning. Your purpose is nothing more than to challenge the strong to perfect your own kendo. If you join me, you can use what you have learned in your life, fight with all kinds of strong people, and reach the limit of kendo faster. There are countless strong people in the world government, and there are even more strong people living in Mariewa. Among them, Hawkeye is just an ordinary member. I'm afraid you don't have that ability. I'm a bounty criminal, but you're a government person. Hawkeye glanced at Dustless and said in a sarcastic tone. It means that as long as you get rid of the government people, you will, with an unfathomable smile on his face, Wuchen asked with a smile. It is not difficult for him to deal with the world government. After all, Hawkeye will be the dog of the world government, Shichibukai. Although Hawkeye had doubts, he nodded affirmatively. As long as he could stabilize the peak of kendo, it really didn't matter to him whether he was a pirate or a government person. It was because he was eager to reach the limit of kendo that he challenged the heroes of all sides and was rewarded. Gotcha! The sound of tearing clothes suddenly sounded, and Hawkeye was slightly stunned. He raised his head and saw a unique symbol, and his pupils suddenly enlarged. I'm a celestial dragon, do you think it's difficult for me? Chapter 420. The power of Tenryubito is unimaginable. They are old antiques living in the old era, descendants of the 20 kings who built the world 800 years ago. No one in the world dares to question Tenryubito, including the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. To some extent, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, and the so-called Marine are the dogs of Tenryubito. Marine Superior Department is the world government, that is, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, and the status of Tenryubito is higher than the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Once a Tenryubito is attacked, the Admiral of Marine Headquarters will personally come out and settle everything. From this, it can be seen how arrogant Tenryubito is in this world. It's a monster. Tenryubito is, thinking of the unbearable deeds of Tenryubito, Hawkeye's face was full of strangeness. The guy with unprecedented strength in front of him turned out to be a Tenryubito. The world calls that group of special people the biggest garbage. It's no wonder that you find it so hard to accept, but as the saying goes, when things reach an extreme, there will be gold in the garbage dump. Shrugging his shoulders, Dustless did not deny it and said very casually. More than 90% of the Tenryubito in Mariewa are lazy, and they are intoxicated by the glory of their ancestors all day long. Hearing this, Hawkeye was speechless. Dustless in front of him is the best example. There is a lot of garbage, and it doesn't matter if a piece of gorgeous and bright gold occasionally comes out. I am a criminal with a bounty of more than 100 million. The government will not let me enter Mariewa at will. Shaking his head, Hawkeye still felt like a sheep in a tiger's mouth. Although he is confident in his strength, Mariewa is the nest of the world government, and the last thing that is lacking is strong people. It's you who think too much, they want you to go to Mariewa. Dustless said softly with a smile on the corner of his mouth. If possible, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, would like Hawkeye to clean up the Tenryubito after entering Mariewa. This is also what the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, want to do. Saying that you are a Tenryubito, I still feel like I am dreaming. Hawkeye breathed a sigh of relief. The strongest enemy he encountered in his life suddenly became one of the members of the world's biggest trash, and he inexplicably became a subordinate of the celestial dragons. Even if he was adaptable, it was hard to accept. If I were a fake Tenryubito, would I joke with the officials of the world government and the Marine? Rolling his eyes, Dustless asked. This is no different from dying directly. That's true. Hawkeye nodded slightly. No one in the world dared to pretend to be a celestial dragon because even if they had 100 lives, they couldn't withstand the revenge of the world government. Boom boom boom, a powerful airwave exploded in the air. In the center of the island, a powerful impact spread out in all directions. The sea surface that was hit by the impact formed stormy waves that were several feet high. Hawkeye and Dustless, who were on the outskirts of the island, were also affected. It seems that the fight over there is much more intense than here, Dustless said thoughtfully as he looked into the distance. At the same time, his hands once again hugged the sky. The boundless repulsive force gushed out, and a small crater suddenly appeared on the sea's surface under his feet. It was just that the scale was not as big as before. Shinra Tensei. The perfect 360-degree repulsive force erupted, and the incoming waves were suddenly split into 4 or 5 parts. The water stains in the sky disintegrated, and Dustless and Hawkeye, who were protected by the repulsive force, were not touched by the water. Akagami, Akagami, taking a deep breath, Hawkeye's eyes became complicated. Pirate is a profession that lives in a storm of blood, and from the moment you step into the pirate profession, you must be aware of it. You and Akagami, Akagami, have a personal grudge. After a few glances at Hawkeye, Dustless's whole body lost its feeling and turned into thousands of particles that rushed to the center of the island. Hawkeye is not the kind of person who betrays at will. His dignity is more important than life and death. Since he chose this path, he will not be soft-hearted. Fistbone. Along with a vigorous and powerful voice, there was a loud bang, and a huge black shadow was thrown out. Looking closely, it was Hundred Beast Kaido who was thrown out. Kid, you seem to have become a lot weaker. Don't tell me that this old man is more than 50 years old, so you want to go easy on me. With all due respect, this old man really didn't see that this guy with horns on his head is a person who respects the old and loves the young. Garp looked at Kaido, who was covered in blood but full of energy. He had fought with Kaido before. Compared to the arrogant Kaido of the past, Kaido was obviously weak. Don't take advantage of your seniority. Kill me if you have the ability. Kaido stared gloomily at Garp. His lungs were overturned, and he was vomiting blood uncontrollably. This was all thanks to this hero, Garp. Worthy of being the strongest man who forced the Pirate King several times, Kaido wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stood up again with a sneer on his face. He said sarcastically, I was caught by the Marines before, but in the end you couldn't kill me. You couldn't kill me before, and you can't kill me now. Due to the heavy injuries he suffered from Dustless, his mind was still in a daze. His strength was suppressed like never before. Because of this, Kaido was beaten to a pulp by Garp. Looking at the blood stains all over his body, his hatred for Dustless deepened. The whole island was filled with war, and the world government officials suddenly attacked, and the pirates were caught off guard. However, there is a gap between the forces of the two sides. Although the world government has high-end battle power, the pirates are obviously not bad. Under the oppression of the shadow of death, most of the pirates have abandoned their old grievances and chose to join forces to resist the strong pressure of the world government. The scene fell into a stalemate for a moment. It's very lively. Dustless landed on the island and looked at the situation on the island. He chose to look at the war from a neutral point of view. The idea was very good, but the reality was very cruel. Suddenly a cold look was cast over him. Apparently, he was treated as prey. Chapter 421. Staring at the lone figure in front of him, the mysterious man's mouth curled into a murderous smile. Such a young person wearing the world government logo is either rich or noble. Kill him, the hypocrites of the world government should have a headache. The tall figure's inner thoughts turned into substantial actions. His heart was filled with murderous intent, and his huge body was like thunder. Under the sun, his whole body was extremely dazzling. As far as the eye could see, its huge body was covered with hard diamonds. The speed of his whole body was raised to the limit, and so was his strength. His eyes were fixed on the figure in front of him and he suddenly attacked. Perhaps this person's strength was too terrifying, the ground trembled with his rhythm as he walked. Glitter collision. Aware of the sudden attack from behind, Dustless turned his head and saw the dazzling man wrapped in diamonds. After absorbing the sunlight, he became more dazzling. Whitebeard Pirate's third captain, Diamond Josu. Suddenly looking back, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Dustless said to himself. A tall shadow shrouded him. Looking up, it was a diamond fist raised high. Boring. Lifting his eyelids, Wu Chen stared at the huge fist that was rumbling down. His mouth spat out cold words. Deep in his eyes, a ferocious aura flashed. He casually raised his arm. His small, thin, white hand was in sharp contrast to the big, thick fist. On the surface, it was a completely unequal battle. Damn world government, disappear. His eyes turned scarlet, and dense blood vessels swam. With endless anger towards the world government, he swooped down with an iron fist that was enough to destroy a building. Boom! His arms suddenly shook, and unprecedented numbness spread through his body and mind. It was similar to amputation. He couldn't feel the existence of his arm. Diamond Josu was stunned. His small hand was no different from a meteorite. It was extremely hard. How is this possible? His eyes widened as he looked at Dustless, who used only one hand to take his full blow. Diamond Josu's voice trembled in disbelief. It's fine if you don't understand. As the price for ambushing me, disappear, Dustless's face was filled with indifference. Light gathered at his fingertips and he aimed at Jot's heart. Whatever he did, he had to pay the price. As soon as he finished speaking, a straight laser beam whizzed out. So fast. His pupils suddenly shrank, and Josu subconsciously took a step back. Countless diamonds immediately extended from his strong body, protecting his entire person in a watertight protection. Clang! The diamond in the heart had a burn mark, and then the golden light beam was bounced off. It was obvious that the diamond was extremely hard, and the light beam from Dustless's hand was not enough to shake it. That's all. Removing the diamond's defense, he was just about to mock Dustless for making him nervous for nothing. Just as the diamond on his eyes dissipated, a giant golden arm filled his entire eye socket. Boom! The majestic body that weighed thousands of kilograms was directly thrown out, and the shining diamond was also smashed into powder by the powerful force. The diamond Jot's internal organs were all dislocated in an instant. He was dying and on the verge of death. The golden halo lit up again, and Dustless's thumb once again condensed a destructive light wave. Even if he was on the verge of death, he did not intend to let Diamond Jots go. Whiz! The sound of breaking air resounded through the sky, and Diamond Jots closed his eyes in despair. He regretted it and waited for the arrival of death. His mind couldn't help but think of the past. Recalling the actions of the world government and the crew members of the Whitebeard pirates who died in battle, even if he died, he would not regret it. Clang! The crisp sound of steel colliding came, and Diamond Jots, who closed his eyes, opened his eyes subconsciously and saw a middle-aged man in a black cloak. Red hair. The newcomer had a well-proportioned body and a dignified appearance. He had red hair and short stubble around his mouth. He wore a white shirt that was often half-buttoned. Sometimes, he would wear a long black cloak, a western sword at his waist, and sandals. The most eye-catching thing was that he was wearing an old straw hat. Yo, Jots, long time no see. Turning his head and looking at the stunned Diamond Jots, Red Hair Shanks showed a kind smile, giving a soft feeling, full of kindness and intellectuality. The corner of his eyes looked at the crystal powder sprinkled around Diamond Jots, and his eyes flashed. It was not difficult to guess the strength of a person who could beat a diamond into powder. Then there are always things that are annoying. His face turned cold. Cold light surged in Dustless's eyes. A golden light shot out from his finger. The target wasn't Shanks himself, but the straw hat on his head. It was a provocative and sarcastic move. Sure enough, the cold murderous intent in Red Hair's eyes flashed away. Clang! The western sword in his hand swept up, and the light beam was immediately bounced off easily. His swordsmanship was superb, and the speed of light was well known all over the world, but Akagami, Red Hair, could easily send it flying. It was enough to see how shocking his observation hockey and visual dynamic ability were. He has lost his combat power, and there is no need to kill him. Your Marine and the government represent justice, and it is not in line with your philosophy. Taking back his sword, Red Hair smiled at Dustless. Perhaps he was born an optimistic and positive person, and he had forgotten what Dustless had done. It's just a pirate, I'll just kill him, and I hate things like you who come out of nowhere. After a few words, Dustless's body had become a shadow. As for his body, he appeared like a ghost beside Red Hair, and his legs with golden light swept straight towards him. The people of the world government are really not easy to deal with. His body flashed back and easily avoided Dustless's kick. The smile on Red Hair's face finally disappeared and was replaced by a cautious face. Chapter 422. You can't judge a book by its cover, the sea can't be measured, and Akagami understood the real meaning. On the right side of the heart, a special pattern can be clearly seen. It is composed of a cross with 4 circles on it, which is similar to the white flag of the world government. Wandering in the sea all his life, Akagami naturally understands what this means. The world knows this unique symbol and it is synonymous with the devil. Tenryubito, staring at Dustless in amazement, Akagami felt that his mind was short-circuited. The sudden scene at the moment is similar to One Piece Roger coming back from the dead. It is even more exaggerated than One Piece coming back from the dead. If you do anything to me, the Marine Admiral will kill you immediately. For fear that Akagami couldn't understand what he meant, Dustless winked at him and explained, pointing to the Tenryubito uniform under his clothes, indicating that he should be obedient and not act rashly. However, it obviously didn't have much of an effect. Red Hair Shanks was still cautious. The western sword in his hand surged with a sharp cold light. The cold light refracted by the sword made people not dare to look at it directly. It was enough to easily pierce people's eyeballs. That impeccable movement just now, maybe if the reaction was half a beat slower, when he talked to Dustless again, he might have been bruised all over. Facing a dangerous guy like you, it's hard for me to relax. Hearing this, Akagami said with a smile on his face, and the fear in his eyes was clear. At the same time, observation hockey quietly spread out, and the vast range of horror almost covered the entire island. This should be able to perceive his movement speed, every movement in the world entered his ears. Even the slightest change in a blade of grass in a tree could not escape the red-haired Shanks's prying eyes. Only then did his surging heart finally calm down. Dustless's unparalleled speed, I'm afraid no one can get over it. Suddenly, the coverage of armament hockey suddenly set off a violent vibration, and the domineering momentum went straight into the sky and disappeared in an instant. The ghostly voice resounded behind him. Red Hair Shanks could even feel the chilly wind on his neck. That bone-chilling voice was as cold as the ice in the deep sea. It was inhuman. Do you think you can resist me by reminding me? Too naive, Red Shanks. Or, did you think that the power I displayed earlier was my full strength? As soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling golden light shone brightly. A calf that could easily flatten a small mountain rose from the ground. His move was ruthless and merciless, directly sweeping towards the back of the red-haired Shank's head. I knew you would do that. Helplessly sighing, the corner of his mouth raised into a calm smile. The red-haired man simply looked ahead indifferently. His body was as motionless as a sculpture, and he did not even turn his head back. A cold light flashed in the air, and the well-prepared western sword rose with the momentum. Poochie. Scarlet blood mixed with the flowing air, filling the air with the thick smell of blood. Looking around, Dustless's kick had been easily cut off by Shanks. This casual slash was incomparably sharp, no worse than Hawkeye's. Observation hockey is a very mysterious ability. I can hear the sound of objects. Even the slightest movement, no matter how quietly it moves, can't escape my perception. You are too careless, Tenryubito boy. Such a reckless attack, you can only blame yourself for such a result. Whether it is accidental or inevitable, it is your fault for being careless. Turning his head and staring at Dustless with a broken foot, Shanks explained in a long and serious manner. At the same time, his heart was full of doubts. According to Dustless's current strength, he should have understood hockey and even learned how to use it. It's really surprising. Your strength is so strong, but unexpectedly you don't know hockey. Looking down at Dustless, who fell to the ground and groaned in pain, Red Hair Shank's face was indifferent. The western sword in his hand was raised high, and the refracted cold light fell on Dustless' eyes, making him subconsciously close his eyes. Pirates are cruel, and Red Hair Shanks is the same. Of course, compared with those pirates who do all kinds of evil, Red Hair Shanks is a different kind of existence. He is much kinder and more righteous than them. He will not be more interested in the weak and will not be bored enough to kill them. Dustless is an exception, and he is a very strong Tenryubito. It is best to kill him silently. Poochie, his eyes flashed with a touch of anger. Dustless's ravaged voice also stopped, and the whole world returned to silence again. Dustless's body also had a bloody trace, and there was no fatality. His eyes were quite regretful as he glanced at Dustless's body and walked away. If he had endured for 2 more years, he would definitely be a life and death enemy of pirates in the future. It's a pity that he fell like this. Brushing some dust on his straw hat, Red Hair Shanks put it back on, lowered the brim of his hat, and went straight to the center of the island where the vibrations were strongest. Stupid, do you think that you can predict my speed with observation hockey? If you can try to predict my position again. The laughter of ridicule and disdain resounded throughout the void. Red Hair Shanks was stunned, and immediately saw his observation hockey spread out again. When he noticed a flash of light rushing towards him, it was too late, and his whole person had been eroded by the powerful golden luster. Boom! With a loud bang, a huge pit appeared out of thin air in the mountain in the distance, and Red Hair Shanks was deeply trapped in it. I'm just playing house with you. Do you really think that you can kill me? Even if you're dreaming, you should know when to stop. The resplendent and gorgeous luster converged from all directions, and in the boundless energy tide, a thin figure slowly formed. The unscathed silhouette was reflected in the eyes of the red-haired Shanks. It was Dustless without a doubt. Don't think it's over. Cathoned Grand Fire Annihilation. Chapter 423. The scorching waves of fire didn't differentiate between friend and foe, burning the ground within a few kilometers, mercilessly roasting the earth. Not a single blade of grass grew, and the ground was in a mess. The ground that could still be considered green was completely devoid of life. The place where Red Hair Shanks was, the fire was monstrous, and the flowing air, including the moisture contained in the atmosphere, was evaporated. Naturally, he was the target of Dustless's attention. The divine fire that fell from the sky burned everything, and everything withered, turned into dust and smoke, and disappeared with the wind. Under such a situation, no one could escape. In the endless sea of fire, everything seemed pale and powerless. Looking far, Dustless's eyes were dark, and his eyebrows were slightly raised. He was not as happy as he expected. Following Dustless's line of sight, he could vaguely see that in the blazing sea of fire, a dark Iron Man stepped out indifferently. The skin all over his body, Even the hair on his body were dark, shining, fearless, and safe in the sea of fire, like taking a walk after a meal. His white eyes were covered with dense blood like a spider web, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. Wherever he went, the flames would be extinguished. There was no need for deliberate moves, but the suppression of momentum alone. "You guy, are you really Red Hair Shanks?" Dustless's tone was a little surprised. Although he was 100% sure that the person in front of him was Red Hair Wooey, he was still temporarily distracted by his appearance. Red Hair Shanks's whole body seemed to be painted with ink, and he completely entered the state of armament hockey. "I'm afraid that no one in the world has ever seen him before." The only person who was lucky enough to see this once-in-a-lifetime scene was Dustless. Staring at the pupils covered with blood, Dustless also knew that at this moment, Red Hair Shanks had completely turned into a ferocious beast. "Your previous body should have been strange." Sure enough, the world is full of strange things. Unexpectedly, there is such a strange and unpredictable ability. Celestial dragons really have the advantage of time, place, and people. Pointing to Dustless's body that had been killed before, Red Hair Shanks was stunned for a while. The body that he had killed before had melted into an unknown golden solution. After thinking for a while, Red Hair Shanks came back to his senses and looked at Dustless. Deep in his eyes, there was a hidden cold light. The Marine is the enemy of One Piece, so is the world government, and celestial dragons are enemies for generations. We must try our best to uproot this thriving seedling. Otherwise, the great age of pirates that Captain Roger painstakingly created with his life as the benchmark will end in this boy's hands. The red-haired Shank's heart was unusually heavy. He felt as if a 1,000-kilogram rock was pressing on his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. It seems to be a fierce battle. Looking at Dustless, Red Hair Shank said cautiously. He took off the straw hat on his head and brushed the black smoke on it. His eyes flashed with a decisive color. He gently touched his neck, and there was a crisp sound of bones. Obviously, he hadn't used this state for many years, and he was unfamiliar with it again. A fierce battle. I really don't understand why you people are so confident. Where does your confidence come from? You always think that you are an omnipotent savior, and you can change everything with your blood. I can tell you very responsibly, that's bullshit. In front of Red Hair Shanks, photons condensed in the sky. Looking up, it was Dustless with a cold look on his face, and his small legs gathered the dazzling sunlight. No matter what world, any place. The one who has the final say is the one with the biggest fist. With a sneer, an unprecedented heavy blow whizzed out and swept straight toward Red Hair Shanks's head. Seeing this, Red Hair Shanks's pupils suddenly shrank, and he didn't dare to be arrogant. He crossed his arms in front of him and pressed his body tightly against the ground, preparing for a full defensive impact. Boom! The thin calf seemed ordinary, but the strength was surprisingly terrifying. Red Hair Shanks was forced to fly, and the ground pulled out a gully of more than 10 meters long. This guy is worthy of being a Yonko, for emperor's man. His attainments in hockey are so deep. Falling to the ground, Dustless's cold eyes moved. He didn't expect Red Hair Shanks's armament hockey to be so strong. His strong body was no different from a meteorite covered with human skin. However, Red Hair Shanks was also uncomfortable, and his dark cheeks were gloomy like water. He didn't reach this level when he fought with me just now. His current strength can't jump so much at once. Thousands of puzzled doubts poured into his heart. Red Hair Shanks was on guard against Dustless, and at the same time, the thoughts in his mind rolled, and he secretly wondered why the gap between before and after was so big. Dustless, who was killed before, was obviously much more fragile. The exaggerated extent was like a Marine Rear Admiral suddenly becoming an admiral. Even more incredible than this. Clumsy, shaking his head helplessly, Dustless sighed and said, "You still don't understand. The person who fought with you and Diamond Josu just now was indeed me, but that was just a doppelganger of mine. It was just for entertainment and to kill time, the strength that it condensed was insignificant. It was completely different from my real body now. The clone that just fought with you and Diamond Josu was just the dessert before the meal. And you think you can defeat me with your own strength? Ridiculous. With a complacent look on his handsome face, Dustless ridiculed mercilessly. That arrogant look gave people the feeling that he was a villain who was intoxicated with success. Obviously, he was deliberately disgusting the red-haired Shanks. That wasn't your full strength before, and I didn't show my full strength. Hearing this, the red-haired Shanks only smiled, and Dustless' ridicule was treated as wind that entered his left ear and left his right ear. He was originally an optimistic person, and he would absolutely not lose his mind because of a few sarcastic remarks. His life had been filled with ups and downs, and he had already tempered a heart of iron that had been tempered thousands of times. Hey! Accompanied by a muffled and powerful shout, red-haired Shanks's body erupted with powerful energy fluctuations. His supreme aura was awe-inspiring and extremely domineering. Dustless's skin actually seeped out wisps of blood strangely. Chapter 424. His heart was silent, his eyes narrowed, he raised his arm and carefully looked at the changes in it. After a long silence, his deep black eyes rippled. Is this an ability? No, it doesn't seem like it. It should be some kind of strange move. It's hard to believe that the man outside actually has such a ruthless trump card. Looking at it, Dustless's surface skin, suddenly and strangely overflowed with some traces of blood, along the pores of the whole body, slowly dripping to the ground. When did this guy do something in my body? Frowning without a trace, Dustless's face was full of doubts. A wisp of spiritual consciousness sneaked into the body and carefully observed any changes inside the body. After a while, the results obtained made Dustless stunned. The internal operation of the body was smooth, the blood circulation was unimpeded, and the internal organs were operating normally. Suddenly, a sense of dizziness spread all over the body, a drowsy tiredness spread all over the body, and the world and the eyes overlapped and blurred. Is it mental exhaustion caused by excessive blood loss? Under Dustless's feet, the blood went deep into the earth, the gray particles were dyed dark red, and the whole body was dry and no different from a dead body because of excessive blood loss. It turned out to be like this. It seems that you and the man Hawkeye are both kendo masters. Not only that, but the control of Haoshiku Haki has also reached this incredible level. The deep black pupils restored the clear color, Dustless said bluntly, the combination of swordsmanship and Haoshiku Haki. It seems that your Haoshiku Haki has been perfected. Someone must have taught you how to be domineering. Otherwise, it would take you at least 10 years to reach your current state if you were to explore on your own. Wu Qin said thoughtfully after taking a deep breath with a strange flowing light in his eyes. His turbulent heart once again returned to a dead silence. Although it is a guess, he is convinced that the red-haired Shanks Haki was taught by someone. Now he is only in his 20s, and he can use Haoshiku Haki to such a superb stage, it is inevitable that he will be taught by others. The pupils twisted sharply, and the scarlet Sharingan was exposed to the air. Through the special eye power of Sharingan, you can clearly see the special existence in the flowing air. These mysterious substances have no substance, like the light of a firefly, but they are real, and they are extremely sharp, circling around the surface of Dustless's skin, constantly stabbing the surface of Dustless's skin. He can't perceive it, there is no pain, no way to resist it, the body seems to have countless invisible holes, and the blood flow can't be stopped at all. Man follows the earth follows the sky follows the path follows nature. Nature is the foundation of all things, it is invisible but real. The limit of Haki is like this, integrating your own attack into nature, attack. Shanks's thoughts fell into melancholy, his domineering eyes dimmed as he fell into deep memories. One could see the shadows of the former pirate King Roger and Dark King Rayleigh in his eyes. I am so looking is so, is this your trump card? It is really, vulgar. The cold sneer resounded through the sky. Looking up, it is dustless. The void rippled, and a cold and indifferent voice entered Shanks's ears. On the other hand, Dustless's body, which was bleeding non-stop, has recovered to normal. Due to excessive blood loss, his face also regained its color, and his eyes were as bright as stars. Suddenly, there is an absurd feeling of being reborn. How is this possible? You shouldn't be able to resist that kind of attack. The red-haired Shanks said in a bewildered tone. His already dark face became even darker, no different from a black pot that has not been washed for 10,000 years. The force of nature is invisible and untouchable, but Dustless was able to resist it. How can he not be shocked? To deal with the force of nature, one must also use the force of nature and control nature. This is a special ability that the red-haired Shanks Hockey has reached an unimaginable level, and he is only a beginner apprentice, so he can only control a little. Tyrant Weave. You should be using this ability, right? Although you are just a beginner, it is undeniable that your understanding of Tao has reached an incredible level, and you have unique insights. Dustless said thoughtfully. The Tyrant Weave is a manifestation of the limit of Haoshiku Hockey. Although the red-haired Shanks has not fully mastered it, it is not difficult to see that he has already begun to understand it. It is a powerful ability that can only be activated after the Haoshiku Hockey is truly awakened and completely unleashed. Under the influence of this power, the dominator of this ability can integrate with the surrounding nature, communicate with all things in nature, and obtain the loyalty of all things, and even change the natural laws of the surrounding world. The red-haired Shanks can already use the force of nature in a small area, communicate with it, and use it to attack Dustless. He still remembers that in this world, only the red-haired Shanks can use Haoshiku Hockey to cause substantial physical damage. But from the beginning to the end, you have been wrong about one thing. His expressionless face slightly relaxed, revealing a touch of arrogance, and he said coldly, the Tao begets one, one begets two, two begets three, three begets all things. All things carry the yin and embrace the yang, and the rush of qi leads to harmony. Ancient and obscure words jumped out from the corner of Dustless' mouth, containing thousands of philosophies, full of infinite magic, and the vicissitudes of life of Sanskrit contained in the world for a long time. Not to mention the red-haired Shanks who was at a loss, even Dustless seemed to understand. As you said, the foundation of all things is indeed the force of nature, and all things in the world circulate endlessly, playing out their own Tao. However, the foundation of nature is yin and yang. Open your eyes and see clearly for me what it means to integrate with nature, to control nature. As soon as Dustless's voice fell, the entire void underwent a strange change. Majestic energy scurried into Dustless's body. His entire temperament also underwent an earth-shattering and astonishing change. Immortal Arts. Chapter 425. Groups of natural energy were absorbed into Dustless's body, and the thin body turned into a spring in the deep sea, madly swallowing the natural energy of the void. Dustless's temperament also changed dramatically, and with it, there were red marks on both sides of his eyes, and the whole person was full of vitality. Obviously, he was close at hand, but there was always a sense of being far away. Seeing this, red-hair Shanks was slightly silent, and his excited heart also calmed down. His eyes were sharp like an eagle's, and he looked at Dustless with a hint of fear in his eyes. Integration with nature means that you can use the infinite power of nature, and there is an essential gap in the strength that you exert. He can clearly perceive that Dustless in this state is very dangerous, and far away from the place, red-hair Shanks can feel the sense of awe, which is invisible, but it is real. There are countless strange abilities. He is not using Haoshiku Hockey at all, and Hockey has not awakened. It is still in a state of incubation, but he has the ability to integrate with nature. Pinching his black iron fist, Red Hair Shanks was puzzled, and even said mercilessly that Dustless does not have Haushiku Haki is a problem worth investigating. Haushiku Haki is innate, and it can't be acquired. Hey! The harsh roar resounded through the sky, and a dark gully suddenly appeared in the clear sky, extending to the distant sky, and the end could not be seen. Everything withered in an instant, and an unprecedented silence and despair spread to every corner of the void. Caw caw caw, the black light broke out of the prison, like the light of destruction from the depths of the 9 serenities, and it tore the ground into pieces, forming a bottomless canyon. The black light that can devour and annihilate everything went straight to Dustless, and it was obvious that it wanted to bury Dustless in one fell swoop. The incomparably sharp slash hadn't even touched Dustless when the black cold wind from the dark side tore at his skin. An unprecedented stinging pain spread through his limbs and bones. Oh! You are indeed a cruel and cold person. How can I resist such a dangerous move? I might as well kneel down and surrender. Seeing this, he shook his head. Dustless pretended to be distressed, and a little caution appeared on his face. It was a recognition of Red Hair Shanks, and he couldn't help but secretly nod. Hawkeye is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and Red Hair Shanks is one of the Yonko, 4 emperors. Her acting skills are really bad. Her acting is too fake. Red-haired Shanks only laughed. He could naturally hear the disdain in Dustless's words. Immediately, the corners of his mouth curled into a strange smile, carrying a vicious and bone-chilling killing intent. Pirates are ruthless, and Red Hair Shanks is no exception. Instead, he knows better than others what it means to get rid of potential enemies in advance. Right at this moment, the dark and gloomy light shook abruptly, and then under Dustless's astonished gaze, it split into 3 and transformed into 3 long and narrow black-colored dim lights. Even though it was like this, its might didn't weaken, and the might of every single one of them was extremely formidable. Despicable enough. Dustless said coldly. His cold voice carried a sense of isolation from the world. Obviously, he despised Red-haired Shanks's actions. I'm not going to let you go. Despicable. I am a pirate, Tenryubito boy. Hearing this, Red Hair Shanks just smiled indifferently. Pirate is synonymous with despicable. Besides, the sword has no eyes, and he doesn't think he has done anything wrong. His tight heart also relaxed, and his eyes fell on Dustless. Red Hair Shanks was full of expectations, but he was destined to be disappointed. Senjutsu Kensusinu. The front was filled with dust, and the visibility was less than 1 meter. After a cold low voice fell, a dazzling flash suddenly swept over, and the gorgeous light made Red Hair Shanks subconsciously close his eyes. He could only passively open his observation haki to perceive the location of Dustless. What monster is that? Shanks's tone was surprised, and he was shocked by the monster in front of him. In the depths of the sand, a giant hole that had never been seen before came into view. The majestic body was wrapped with mysterious golden runes, revealing an indescribable ancient charm. Under the sophisticated perception ability, the entire appearance of this giant was exposed to the perception of Red Hair Shanks. So tall, so big, but it seems to be a little incomplete. Gulping, the red-haired Shanks opened his eyes in disbelief. He stared into the depths of the smoke, even ignoring the blazing flashes that burned his eyes. The mighty and mysterious skeleton giant was reflected in his eyes. What was strange was that it was obviously incomplete. It was only made up of a chest and a head. Even so, its physique was too big to be estimated. 3 dark slashes that were enough to devour everything rushed towards Dustless with an unstoppable momentum. Wherever they passed, the ground was pulled into a bottomless abyss. Ao ao ao. Boom boom boom, a loud and clear roar came from the mouth of the giant wearing the Tengu armor. His scarlet eyes emitted a dangerous glint, and the tachi of light in his hand was swung out. Immediately after, a loud rumbling sound was heard, and the 3 black slashes that Shanks had high hopes for disappeared without a trace. It was completely annihilated in an overwhelming manner. Just the wind of the blade. It doesn't need any skills, just relying on pure strength. It's really barbaric. Red Hair Shanks's face was gloomy, and he looked back leisurely. He could clearly see that several mountains behind him had been flattened, and the cracks of the flattened mountains were smooth. Obviously, it was a fatal blow. In the smoke and dust, there was a strong energy fluctuation, and the flying sand in the sky was instantly suppressed. Chapter 426. The ferocious Tengu armor was exposed to the erosion of the sun, and the tachi of light was shining brightly, and the cold luster covered the ancient earth, faintly showing a splitting trend. Boom boom boom, the lightsaber was held high and was about to roar down when a black shadow rushed over and hit Dustless's Kansusanu, and the powerful force even tore some cracks in Kansusanu. Looking closely, the person who was thrown away and hit Kansusanu was one of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, with a sword. I didn't expect that group of people to be able to abandon their grievances and unite against us. This scene is really an epic picture. Patting the dust on his body, Gorosei, who was holding Shodai's ghost, sighed. The hatred between pirates is no less than a life-and-death enemy, and even because of a casual quarrel, the annihilation of the other pirate group has happened from time to time. The same is true for these top pirates in front of him. Us? I didn't say I was one of you. Chakra surged, and the golden energy brilliance overflowed from the body. Dustless glanced at the bald Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, with a sword, and said casually and indifferently. Hearing this, the bald Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, with a sword showed dissatisfaction in his eyes, but he closed his mouth wisely. Only an idiot would reason with a barbaric Tenryubito. Looking up, countless big pirates and groups of people were confronting each other. All of them were covered in blood and fierce like tigers. Whitebeard, 100 Beast Kaido, Big Mom, and Red Hair Shanks. It seems that your world government is in trouble, with a smile on his face, Dustless said gloatingly. The life and death of the world government has nothing to do with him, and the life and death of the Tenryubito has nothing to do with him. Looking around, the world government and marine are almost in a state of suppression. Under an absolute disadvantage, no one is willing to die. Since they don't choose to die, they can only temporarily join forces. The power of the future, Yonko, for emperors, wearing a pair of pants, no one can be relieved that it doesn't exist. But this old guy seems to be a bit wrong. Dustless sized up the 5 Elder Stars without leaving a trace. His gaze was slightly silent, and the strange look disappeared in a flash. Even the red-haired Shanks was simply ignored by him. So, seeing that Dustless was thinking about something and his body was full of holes, the red-haired Shanks took the opportunity to raise the western sword in his hand and slash down. A black slash once again whizzed out. Boring. Seeing Red Hair Shanks attack again, Dustless's eyes froze. He controlled Kansusanu to raise its arm high. Just as it was about to smash the oncoming slash, an ear-piercing roar suddenly sounded, and an emerald green light arrived. Boom boom boom, the 2 rays of light intertwined with each other. After a while, it was obvious that they were evenly matched. In the end, they turned into a strong force and exploded. A young man with amber-colored pupils entered everyone's line of sight. The slender black knife in his hand was surrounded by a cold light, and there was still a dim light that had not yet dissipated. Obviously, the slash just now was from him. Hawkeye, what do you mean by this guy? Looking at Hawkeye, Red Hair Shanks asked angrily. He and Hawkeye can be regarded as the same kind of existence. Seeing Hawkeye take his attack for Dustless, how can he remain calm? As you can see, I am no longer a pirate. Hearing this, Hawkeye said calmly and indifferently. At the same time, he was afraid that Red Hair Shanks would not believe him. He raised the black knife in his hand and another destructive emerald light shot out. It pulled the ground out of the abyss and went straight to Red Hair Shanks. "You bastard!" Red Hair Shanks' face changed dramatically and quickly dodged. Hawkeye's sword attainments are known to the world. If he is determined to kill someone, he will definitely die. Red Hair Shanks smelled a strong murderous aura from Hawkeye's slash. So, with a stern gaze, the red-haired Shanks was not an indecisive person. The western sword in his hand was like a thunderbolt, and similarly, a black slash whizzed out. The two slashes were once again digested into nothingness. "This guy is my prey, let me take care of him," Hawkeye said in a deep voice as he looked at Wuchen with his eagle-like gaze. There had to be a winner between him and Red Hair. Both of them were at the peak of swordcraft and their abilities were on par with each other. It would be hard to determine the winner without a battle of life and death. "As you wish." Dustless heard this and smiled indifferently. If Hawkeye can solve Red Hair Shanks, it would be best. If he can't solve it, naturally there is a way to solve it. Hawkeye nodded slightly and didn't talk nonsense. He directly attacked Red Hair Shanks with his black knife. Red Hair Shanks is a small problem. But then again, what is going on with this guy? Looking back, Dustless looked around the 5 elder stars holding the knife. His brows wrinkled, and the doubts in his eyes were clear. Following Dustless's gaze, the old guy's injuries were repaired by some special energy. It was extremely strange. It doesn't seem to belong to the type of devil fruit. Those 5 guys are not as simple as they seem. His heart inevitably calmed down. Dustless's eyes emitted an awe-inspiring luster, but then he thought about it and his handsome face was replaced by puzzlement. Meriahwa's Gorosei, 5 elder stars, has a lot of scars all over their bodies. Their strength is incredible, and it is impossible for them to be injured when they were young. As the head of the world government, their enemies are naturally pirates, but Pirate King Roger, Golden Lion, and Whitebeard have no experience with Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Of course, Whitebeard is excluded. In addition to Pirate King Roger, Whitebeard, and Golden Lion, someone can actually hurt Gorosei, 5 elder stars. This is interesting. With a mysterious smile at the corner of his mouth, Dustless's heart suddenly became clear, giving people a feeling that they didn't understand, especially the gloomy smile, which was even more nondescript. Chapter 427. After racking his brain without any results, Dustless's thoughts also converged, and his eyes fell directly on the few people who came. There are many secrets in this world, and if he wants to compete, he will only be asking for trouble. Maybe he ate some mysterious devil fruit. His eyes fell on the Gorosei who was holding the first-generation ghost blade. Dustless secretly guessed, thinking of the strange energy fluctuation that repaired the wound before, he still classified it as the type of devil fruit. There is no such thing as energy in this world. Everyone cultivates physical techniques. The appearance of energy fluctuations also indicates that it may be some unknown mysterious fruit, especially the strange fluctuation just now, which coincides with the energy of Dustless's glint fruit. Ha ha ha, the plan that your world government and Marine senior management painstakingly planned seems to have failed. Haha, the heroic and optimistic laughter resounded through the sky, containing a majestic and powerful force. It turned into a tornado that scattered in all directions. The oncoming world government officials were directly stunned by this monstrous hurricane. They frothed at the mouth and fainted. They were in a sorry state. Looking at the distance, the first thing that came into view was a tall body, and the strong muscles, and the thick arm holding a sharp sword. There is no doubt that it is Whitebeard. This old man is old but strong. Although he has not reached the late stage of aging, he is still a man in his 50s. His energy is unimaginable. If he was 10 years younger, there are not many people in the world who would dare to fight with him. Looking at Whitebeard's body, Wu Chen murmured to himself with his eyes shining. Marine Fleet Admiral Sky, Buddha Warring States, Black Wrist Zephyr, and Garp all had their heads broken and bleeding. Even if there are officials of the world government, their strength is still insufficient to suppress these big pirates. On the other hand, although Whitebeard and Bigu's mom also have blood stains on their bodies, overall, they look much better than the Marine. All of them are calm and powerful. Under the oppression of absolute force, they actually came together. It's really a mistake. The 5 honored stars holding the first-generation Ghost Blade had a gloomy expression. They gnashed their teeth and said hatefully. Everyone knew about the grudges and disputes between these great pirates. It was indeed unexpected that they could come together, even if they were forced. I didn't expect you to be a member of the world government. Life is unpredictable. Looking over, Whitebeard saw Dustless standing side by side with the 5 elder stars who were holding swords. His tone was surprised and regretful. The wind and rain on the sea were changeable. Unexpected things were common. He originally wanted to accept Dustless as his son so that he could give more shelter to his crew's sons. Now, it seemed that his previous idea was just a dream, a bubble. You actually know him. Astonishment flashed in the eyes of the 5 honored stars holding the saber. Then, he laughed in his heart. His shriveled lips wriggled slightly as he said in a cold voice, "Open your dog eyes and look clearly for me. Whitebeard, even if you're senile, you should recognize this symbol. This is the world's aristocrat, Royce South, Saint." Pointing to the unique symbol of the celestial dragons on Dustless, the 5 honored stars holding the saber said solemnly. This old guy. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes swept over the head of the 5 honored stars holding the saber, and the corner of his mouth raised a cold arc. He naturally understood the meaning of the old man's words. Celestial dragons. The hope in Whitebeard's eyes was suddenly extinguished and replaced by an unprecedented gloominess. His eyes were cold and murderous, and the sun dream in his heart also disappeared. Not only that, the sun dream turned into a strong hatred, and an unprecedented negative emotion filled his mind, and the huge iron fist creaked. As a close friend of the Pirate King Roger, Whitebeard also knows some unknown secrets. The master behind Marine is the world government, and the master of the world government is the celestial dragons who claim to be a god. This ancient species looks down on all living things from the perspective of God. If they want Dustless to become a mortal son, this problem can be imagined. Therefore, the moment he learned that Dustless was a celestial dragon, the hope in Whitebeard's heart disappeared with the wind. The son who died on the island was the doing of the world government. As the top boss of the world government, Dustless naturally can't get away with it. Let me see what's so great about your group of gods. His pupils widened, and Whitebeard grinned. The place where his eyes focused was impressively Dustless. His big fist was clenched tightly, and suddenly, cracks appeared in the space around Dustless. Caw caw caw, the spiderweb-like cracks extended rapidly, and a solemn atmosphere spread. The places covered by the cracks in space were all dead silent. It's really a dangerous old man. The deep ink-like eyes stared at the cracks that extended without limit, and the fear in Dustless's eyes flashed away. It's not groundless to call him the strongest man in the world. Especially now, Whitebeard is still in his peak period. Not daring to be arrogant, Dustless's aura surged and rushed up, and the extremely oppressive aura soared straight into the sky, and everyone's heart was pressed by a huge rock. Where on earth did he cultivate such a terrifying murderous aura? Carefully sizing up Wu Qin, who was seething with murderous aura, the expression of the bald Quenlo Xing who was holding the sword slightly changed. In the unseen world, he seemed to hear the sharp screech of the ghost. After thinking for a long time, the thousands of doubts in his heart also dissipated like a breeze. This is also good. the current rotten battle situation really needs a strong combat power to change. The dry cracked mouth was filled with a smile of conspiracy success, and the bald Gorosei holding the sword was proud in his heart. Looking at Dustless's eyes, there was also a little more banter and ridicule. No matter how strong you are just a pawn in the hands of this old man. Chapter 428. In the void that couldn't be touched, a circle of ripples spread out, followed by cracks visible to the naked eye, rapidly extending in a swallowing manner. So far, Tremor fruit, Gura Gura no Mi, is the most powerful fruit that has appeared in the Paramecia. It has the powerful power to destroy the world. Even a slight use can cause violent vibrations, and even exaggerated earthquakes and tsunamis. Whitebeard, who has been using Tremor fruit, Gura Gura no Mi, for most of his life, is naturally very proficient in using it. Combined with his strong physique, he naturally exerts the power of Tremor fruit, Gura Gura no Mi, incisively and vividly. In terms of pure strength, I'm afraid that if he claims to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. If it's really a god, then let me see it. Otherwise, don't use this name to scare people in the future. With a sneer at the corner of his mouth, Whitebeard's huge body looked down at Dustless, who was alone. His strength and momentum continued to rise. After brewing for a while, he then punched out mercilessly. Caw caw caw, the space shattered like a mirror, and countless cracks were densely swallowing. The fierce strength rushed out of the space and turned into an unprecedented storm. The place where the air wave passed was a mess, and the solid ground was forcibly torn apart. His pupils narrowed slightly, and his hands surged with a blazing temperature, and an ancient aura followed, full of unspeakable heat. Dustless's hands suddenly fell to the ground, and with a roar, the sky instantly turned crimson. Uchiha Flame Formation. A crimson flame barrier broke out of the ground and reached the sky, exuding a blazing temperature. The flowing air was boiling and bubbling because of this barrier composed of lava, and white strips of boiling gas were clearly visible. It was just a small barrier, but it gave people the feeling that it separated the two worlds. Behind the enchantment, Wu Chen's expression was indifferent, and his eyes were deathly still. Boom boom boom, an intense tremor suddenly came. Looking up, formless shockwaves continuously bombarded the flame barrier. They were like endless waves, creating a huge commotion. With each wave of merciless bombardment, the flame barrier condensed from magma trembled, faintly emitting a sorrowful cry. The sky suddenly turned crimson, and the flame barrier that almost connected the sky to the ground attracted everyone's attention. Magma fruit user Sakazuki, Akainu, had a fanatical look on his face, his murderous eyes filled with fascination. As a magma fruit user, he could naturally sense the extraordinariness of it. Staring at the dark red enchantment covering the sky, Akainu couldn't keep calm. Inspiration suddenly flashed in his mind, and he made up his mind to develop a new trick later. Scary, being burned by that, the frivolous Borsellino, Kizaru's old face froze, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth came to an abrupt end. Looking at his line of sight, he saw that he had been ravaged in succession. In the end, the flame barrier exploded. The crimson sky returned to normal, and the temperature of the air was maintained at a normal level. The fireworks are finally over. How can a barrier as thin as a cicada's wing withstand my attack? As expected, you so-called gods don't live up to your name. Boom boom boom. The sharp sword in his hand slammed on the ground, and the earth immediately shook, splashing countless dust. Whitebeard looked up to the sky and laughed. Old man, you're still talking big, and you're not afraid of biting your tongue. Old man, there is a phrase called extreme joy begets sorrow. In the smoke and dust, a thin and tender figure slowly stepped out, with delicate features, casually brushed the dust off his body, and then looked directly at Whitebeard with cold eyes. You, who have been silent for a long time, have lost the heart to keep up with the times. If you are so arrogant, sooner or later you will be swept into the dust of history. Looking at Whitebeard without fear, Dustless casually whispered. Extreme joy begets sorrow. I only believe in extreme misfortune. Hearing that, Whitebeard looked at him coldly, his face was full of sneers, and his strength skyrocketed. Now he was only in his 50s, and he still had plenty of physical strength. Just as he was about to annihilate the Tenryubito in front of him, Dustless made a slight movement, but Whitebeard froze, and the raised fist fell, and the offensive stopped. The right eye changed. Blue eye. What ability does this Tenryubito kid have? Whitebeard's heart fell to the bottom, and his eyes, which were closed in advance, opened again. He instinctively thought that Dustless would use the scarlet eyes that he used against Kaido again, so he closed his eyes. According to the current situation, it was obvious that he thought too much. Armament Haki hardening. Even so, Whitebeard can be sure that the blue eyes are some kind of ability, and there is a dimensional gap between them and the eyes of normal human beings. Without hesitation, he opened his Haki defense to prepare for the unexpected. Under the sun, Whitebeard turned into a dark Iron Man. Why do you all know this trick? Seeing this, Dustless's mouth twitched, and he was speechless. Only then did he remember that Armament Haki and Observation Haki seem to be the universal abilities of all human beings. These top big pirates don't know how to use Armament Haki, it is a fantasy. Even so, it is still particularly tangled. Red Hair Shanks and Hawkeye, including Whitebeard now, obviously have their own Armament Haki have reached an incredible level, and they can arm their whole body at will. Kid, you can use all the means you have. A loud voice came out of his mouth, and Armament Haki hardened Whitebeard was full of confidence. As you wish. Hearing this, Dustless's face was cold, and his palm was raised toward Whitebeard, and his mouth was swept with a cold smile, and the chakra in his body went berserk. An invisible impact came out of Dustless's palm. Boom, a heavy strike that couldn't be touched came head-on. When it came into contact with Whitebeard, he was still in an unconscious state. He was directly swallowed up by a strange energy fluctuation and was forced back again and again, vomiting blood. Chapter 429. A black shadow was simply thrown away by the tyrannical force, and the huge body crushed several hills in succession. The dark and robust body was unstoppable and more ferocious than the divine sword. On the ground, one could see a pull mark extending hundreds of meters away. Naturally, it was left by Whitebeard, who was sent flying. Is it the impact of hitting the air? It seems to be the same as the ability of Sengoku. In the deep pit, Whitebeard grinned in surprise, the pain all over his body made his face hideous. Even with the defense of Armament Haki, his lungs and chest were severely damaged. Trying to move his feet, an indescribable tingling spread all over his body. He's still alive. That's right, he's a Yonko, for emperors, and he's still one of the best among them. It's reasonable that he can resist. The black spot in the distance gradually enlarged and finally fell to the ground. It was Dustless who was talking to himself. He smiled and looked at Whitebeard, who was covered in blood but was still sharp. He gave a thumbs up and said, worthy of being the strongest man in the world. The sarcasm in his mouth can be heard by anyone. Sharp-tongued brat, if you have the ability to continue to use it, if you have the guts to kill me. Looking at Dustless without fear, Whitebeard was full of energy. It's not difficult to hear from his saturated tone that he really has no big problem. Armament Haki has reached the level of Whitebeard, and his body's toughness is far beyond the imagination of the world. In the later generations, he can resist the soft and hard pestering of the 3 admirals and countless marines. Now he is full of energy and extremely durable. Kill you. It's not what you want. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled casually with a mysterious smile on his mouth. Royce South, please understand the situation. Whitebeard is one of the 3 pirates. After killing him, the antiques of the previous era will also mean the complete end. The Gorosei who rushed over said bitterly. He couldn't wait to break Whitebeard's body and then said, after killing him, you can also change the world's view of Tenryubito. You will also become a great hero and be praised by the civilians who are oppressed by pirates all over the world. The Gorosei who galloped over tempted Dustless, and his tone was full of endless magic. Praise me. I'm afraid he'll be scolded badly. Dustless sneered again and again. This bald man really thought that Dustless was an inexperienced kid. Not to mention killing Whitebeard, even if he overthrew the world government, the civilians who had been ravaged by the celestial dragons for hundreds of years would not thank Dustless. Hundreds of years of hatred could not be solved by a mere Dustless. Moreover, Dustless did not care. I didn't say that I would help your world government clean up pirates, and Dustless glanced at the bald-headed quintet elder stars who had a stiff expression while holding a sword. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He laughed softly and said, I'm going to stop now. You can leave safely, Whitebeard. Dustless's words were like a level 10 storm, making Whitebeard and the 5 honored stars holding the saber stare blankly. Obviously, they had not recovered from their shock. Louis South, Saint, are you kidding me? Hearing this, the corners of his mouth twitched fiercely. The 5 honored stars holding the saber almost vomited blood. He resisted the anger in his heart and spat at Dustless. If the world government collapses, the celestial dragons will not have a good time. The existence of the world government is the foundation of protecting the celestial dragons. For fear that Dustless would not understand the powerful relationship, the 5 honored stars holding the saber explained seriously. Kidding? Do you think I'm kidding? Staring at the 5 honored stars holding the saber, Dustless asked faintly. His tone was calm and he said bluntly, it's not impossible for me to do it, but your world government has to promise me 10 conditions. Regardless of the 5 honored stars whose face was getting darker and darker, Dustless said to himself, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, and Red Hair Shanks, these people originally added up to 12 conditions. But for the sake of us being on the same ship, I will discount it to 10 for your world government. Dustless's clear eyes stared at the 5 honored stars holding the saber, and he said seriously. 10 conditions. You celestial dragons have enough privileges, what else do you want? In your dreams. Without thinking, the 5 honored stars holding the saber directly refused in a cold voice. And when Whitebeard saw that Dustless was slow to make a move, he also turned around and swaggered away. Seeing this, the heart of the bald 5 elder stars holding the saber twitched. His complexion was ashen and extremely gloomy. The world government and the celestial dragons are bound together for good or ill. The image of the world government has fallen, and the celestial dragons naturally follow the bad luck. Looking at Dustless's eyes, the 5 honored stars holding the saber raised his voice, and in his words, there was a warning. If the world government is destroyed, all the privileges of the celestial dragons will vanish. And according to human nature, I am afraid that the celestial dragons who have been arrogant for hundreds of years will be the first to be slaughtered. This has nothing to do with me. Even if that group of people die, it has nothing to do with me. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled and then sneered, what's more, your world government has lost a lot of face. I don't see them talking about the celestial dragons. The world government has been slapped in the face countless times. Among them, Jold, Roger became the Pirate King, which was the biggest provocation to the world government. Ordinary civilians didn't talk about the celestial dragons, but they abused the incompetence of the world government. Staring at Whitebeard's back that was getting farther and farther away, the 5 honored stars' old face flashed a touch of entanglement. After thinking about it, the hesitation on the old face was replaced by determination. He gritted his teeth and said, let's hear it. I expected you to be like this. With a hazy smile on his face, Dustless leaned close to the 5 honored star's ear and said his conditions. The latter's face changed greatly when he heard this, and regardless of their identities, he suddenly turned hostile. You're dreaming, do you know what you're talking about? Royce South, holy. These secret contents, even as a celestial dragon, you have no right to know. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.